We all know that communication skills are crucial for any relationship. And when somebody has those skills, oh my gosh, they make so much of an impression to you and to me. But we've also had those moments where we're really nervous to talk with people because we don't know how our request or our message will be received. Well, this podcast, fortunately, is going to go over all the things, the science, the tips, the tricks, and the ways to make sure that you can have the best relationships that you can through the way that you communicate. And after listening to these episodes, you can do so fearlessly with confidence, knowing that you can be relatable to anybody you choose. Welcome to the Attractive Relationships Podcast. Have you ever been in a relationship that is toxic? A relationship that left you asking this question: am I the problem? Why am I not good enough? Is another question that you may have asked. If you've asked those questions within a relationship, chances are you have been in a toxic relationship. And while you're in it, or even when you break free from a toxic relationship, emotionally, it is still very tough. You still may walk around in a way that is very guarded emotionally, that makes you very hesitant or resistant to establish other relationships. It makes you very critical, very standoffish, very protective of your emotions when it comes to any relationship, work or personal. If that has been your experience, if you're currently in a toxic relationship or recently have gone out of a relationship, this episode is for you. In this episode, we're going to talk about how we found ourselves in these toxic relationships and how do we avoid this in the future. Because what we don't want is we don't want to be the type of person who walks through life as a lesser version of what we used to be prior to the toxic relationship. Do you really want to walk through a life as a person who is so defensive and has these walls and these barriers that is becoming so difficult to try to get to know? Or would you rather have the best versions of yourself kind of shine through for other people to see, where you can attract the right kinds of people for you? And the right kind of people are the ones that you can actually trust and who really want to support you and your life goals and your beliefs. I would guess, if I had to bet money, most of us want to be the latter. We don't want to be super shy and reserved. We want to be bold and we want to be vulnerable, with the right people being the key. So to do that, we have to understand, how do we get ourselves in these toxic relationships in the first place? And one of the beliefs that I carry with me is that how you describe your relationship how you describe your communication describes the relationship. So again, how you describe your communication will also describe your relationship. If you've got a really good communication with somebody where every time you talk to them, you are happier, you feel like you are connected more and you trust more, you probably have a good relationship. If you have a relationship where you feel guarded, where you don't feel like you can share everything that's on your mind, that's probably also describing your relationship. And if you have a relationship where it's very critical, it's very tense, that probably also describes your relationship. And what we want is the kind of communication where it's free, it's flowing, it's natural. We feel like we can be ourselves with that person and vice versa. And what happens when we fall into a toxic relationship, it literally is kind of like a fall. You don't even realize it's happening because it's happening in slow motion. Because if the other person was toxic for us and it was obvious, we wouldn't fall in slow motion. It would hit us like a ton of bricks. And we would say, ow, that hurts. I don't think I like this. But what happens is, because I'm willing to bet that you yourself are an empathetic person, which means you try to see things from other people's perspective. So when you choose to be in a relationship with somebody and there's a disagreement, your question is there something wrong with me? That might be your first question. you know, or how am I the disappointment? How can I be better for this person? All right. And that's you. The other person may not be doing that. It took me over 40 years to realize that there are people in this world that not only do they lack empathy or the ability to be empathetic, but that it's not obvious that they're like that. In fact, they are very good at mimicking empathy for short periods of time. Some people call them narcissists. I try not to draw such a blanket statement because to be a narcissist, you have to be like officially diagnosed by a professional. However, it can still be toxic for you to be with somebody who's not reciprocating empathy for you. And so, another strongly held belief that I have is that everybody tells on themselves eventually. All you have to do is listen long enough. So, this is how we fall into toxic relationships. Right? You are trying to understand another person's perspective, what they believe, what matters to them, and they don't reciprocate that for you. This usually reveals itself when there's a disagreement. Now, not necessarily so much in small disagreements, although that can be kind of a microcosm, a precursor to their level of being able to empathize. So, for example, if there's a disagreement with how to stack the dishes in the dishwasher, all right, small thing that's not going to massively affect how you go about your entire day or your life. All right. But if somebody judges you and criticizes you and really means it, like, hey, that's a dumb way to stack the dishwasher, you dumbass. Like, okay, that's definitely not being empathetic. And it's something maybe to keep in the back of your mind for when bigger conversations happen. Like, where do we live? How do we parent? Do we have children? How do we handle money? Other beliefs, religious beliefs, political beliefs, and so on and so forth. When you have bigger topics that you might disagree on, a relationship doesn't have to end just because you disagree. The question is, can both of you show empathy for each other? And secondly, can you support it? We fall into these toxic relationships probably because you were empathetic towards your other person's perspective, but they didn't have that towards you. You may have been very supportive of something that mattered to them, even if you disagreed. But when then you start to wait for your turn for that to be reciprocated, and it never happened. But now, because you've been through this experience, here are the keys to be able to not experience that again. And even better, as you are no longer the victim in this story, but you are the hero because you overcome these things. You didn't allow this negative, toxic experience to put this wall over your heart that made you so guarded that you have a hard time connecting in future relationships. No, that's not you. You are the hero in your story. And now, not only are you the hero in your story, but you can help other people who've experienced the same. Or better yet, you can help people prevent the toxic experience that you have had. Here's how you do it. Hey guys, real quick, I am sure that all of us have had the moments where we're a little nervous or afraid to talk to somebody because we don't know how they're going to respond. Are we going to be able to talk to our life partner without them getting upset? Or are we going to talk to our boss to get that raise or that interview for that job? If we ever get nervous in those moments, we have to fearlessly communicate in a way that's effective to get the things we want and need. And if you want to know how to consistently do that, there's a formula and a program on exactly how to do that. And it's called the Be Fearless and Effective Communicators Program. If you are interested in learning more about that, you can click the link that's in the show notes, or you can go to attractiverelationships.com/fearless. When you communicate with somebody, this is one way to use the 3 C's that we talk about in the Fearless and Effective Communicator program. The 3 C's will help you to communicate not just in a way that makes you relatable, but it also shines a light on who the other person is, how they really are. So let's talk about it. The 3 C's. Number one, lead with curiosity. Lead with curiosity. So we do that when we have a conversation where we disagree. If we lead with curiosity, it's like, how did you come to think this way? Or how does this make you feel? Or what is it about this way of thinking or this way of doing things? What about it makes it the most comfortable or the best for you? If we lead with that curiosity, that is a great way to start. What a lot of people end up doing is they don't lead with curiosity, they lead with judgment. So they lead with judgment, they lead with shame. That's stupid. That's bad. That's not smart. All right. They've already judged and concluded that your idea is not great, which usually, again, when we have that repeated experience from somebody, we start to question, am I the problem? What's wrong with me? All right. The second thing you do is gaining clarity. That's the second C. Usually in clarity, we talk about and how we speak in a way that we're relatable. But clarity is also about how you listen and understand people. So when you lead with curiosity, that allows you to listen and then you respond in a way to clarify what you understand. Again, if somebody's leading with empathy or has empathy, they'll do the same for you. So when you're listening for clarity, you're also listening to see clearly if they can empathize with you. I'll give you a personal example of one time I was talking to a close friend of mine, and we were at a bar just having just a normal conversation. And I have this belief that my friend questioned. She didn't believe the same thing I believed. What I believe is that I can find common ground with anybody, even if that person's an asshole. I just have a common, like just very basic denominator. I'm like, we can at least start here on something we have in common. And what I have in common, I ask in the phrase of a question, which is, do you kick puppies? I apologize if that seemed very mean or graphic, but that's where I start with people. Do you kick puppies? And if the answer is no, great. We can have a conversation. I don't know where it's going to lead, but I know we can at least have the conversation, even if you're not the nicest person. Now, my friend was like, I don't think that's the smartest. She didn't say it that way, but she definitely disagreed. And we went on and on for a while in this conversation until she trapped me in this position, hypothetical position of being in a room with somebody who's kind of an asshole and is somebody I clearly don't like and agree with in most things. And she says, well, now what do you do, Rico? Man, I stroke my chin a little bit, start to think. And I said, does this person kick puppies? And we both laughed because, again, that's kind of where my mind goes to be able to say, I may not like you, but I can still talk with you. Now, she is not going to live her life that way. That's not something that she agrees with. But her level of empathy was demonstrated in what she said next. She says, Rico, what you say makes a lot of sense. And maybe if the world thought that way, we could be in a better place. I just don't think the world works quite that way. And so I do things differently, but I'm grateful for people in the world like you. Oh my gosh, what a way to disagree with somebody. Can you imagine how that made me feel? And so I ask you this question. When somebody disagrees with you, do they show that level of empathy with you? Do they validate your opinion or your belief that's different from theirs? And even going a step beyond that, are they willing to support it? Are they willing to encourage you to be you, even though they may not fully agree with it? That is empathy plus support. And that only happens if they are curious and are looking for the clarity. But for you, you are trying to listen for that level of empathy. If they have it, they'll validate what you say, even if they disagree. If they don't have that empathy, what will they then do? They'll do the things that made you question if you're the problem. They will criticize you. They will shame you. They will judge you. They'll tell you that you're wrong or stupid for your beliefs, your goals, your ambitions, your opinions. And is that the person that you really want to be with? Can you really trust that kind of a person who shames you and judges you for your beliefs and your goals? Is this the person that can really support you in your life? whether this is a personal relationship or professional. If it's a professional relationship, unfortunately, you may not have been in the position to hire somebody, let alone fire them. And so using communication techniques is a way to make the best of the situation. If you have kids with somebody who treats you this way, that's a tricky situation to be in, but having the right communication techniques is a way to make the best of that situation. But if you are choosing this relationship with somebody and you don't share kids necessarily, you have to ask yourself the hard question on can this person truly support me? Can I really trust this person? And this goes both ways. Maybe the difference in how you believe, maybe there's room for empathy, but not support. It's like, hey, what you say makes sense. I understand why you feel this way, and here's how I understand that you feel the way you do. It makes a lot of sense. I just don't know if I can support that. And if that's the case, the situation isn't so much toxic as it is two good people who just aren't good for each other. But if you're listening for clarity and understanding if this person has a level of empathy for you and the ability to support you, if it's there, it's great. But if it's not, chances are you're in a toxic relationship, and you have to ask the question if you want to continue to choose to be in that relationship, or do you want to choose something different? And hopefully, whatever decision you choose something that doesn't allow you to stay or be the victim of that experience. You equip yourself with the tools so that way you are not constantly putting up emotional barriers that make it difficult to get to know somebody or connect with somebody or trust somebody, but rather you do it in a way to where you feel confident that you trust yourself and your ability to connect with people because you know how to convey yourself in a way that's relatable, but also you can communicate in a way that shines a light on how other people really are, especially their ability to empathize, number one. Two, to be able to empathize with you specifically. And three, if they can actually support you. Because remember, everybody tells on themselves eventually. You just have to listen long enough for them to tell on themselves. And if you use the communication techniques that are spread through this podcast or through the Fearless and Effective Communicator program, you will have that confidence to be fearless and effective in how you communicate and how you relate to other people. So if this episode brought you any value, make sure to like, subscribe, share. Share this episode with somebody that you know that has been through a toxic relationship. Because again, I don't want you or anybody to stay or remain a victim of past toxic relationships. I want you to be the hero in your own story so that way you can go and help other people do the same. And if you are interested in the Fearless and Effective Communicator program, click the show notes below. Attractiverelationships.com is where you can find more information. And until then, I look forward to speaking with you on the next episode. As we come to the end of another episode of Attractive Relationships, I want to express my gratitude to you for tuning in. Your support really does mean the world to me. Now, if this episode brought you any value, I would truly appreciate it if you shared this podcast with anyone that you think could benefit from our discussions on effective communication and relationship building. Until next time, remember, great relationships start with great communication. So stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep building those attractive relationships.